welcome to yet another episode of Inspiring Leaders and Leadership, a podcast by Advantage Club. My name is Smiti, and I'm one of the founders of Advantage Club, which is an employee engagement, rewards, recognition, and overall flexible benefits platform. So today we have another amazing, person with us joining us today. We have Aarthi Priyankhaa, who's the Senior Manager HRBP at Photon. Welcome, Aarthi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Smiti. Thank you very much for having me in today. Thank you.
Really excited to have you here and learn a lot more about your journey and how your overall professional and personal life has been. So to start off with, we'd love to have the audience know a little bit about your background, what you do, and your journey. Of course, we know about you, but we'd love to hear it from you itself.
Absolutely. Thank you again. I would like to call out Advantage Club for giving me this opportunity. So Smiti, a little bit about me. So my story is of an electrical engineer who fell in love with human resource management, if I have to call it out very dramatically, right? So I come with about 15 plus years of experience in human resource management. So academically, I'm an electrical engineer. Later went on to do my master's in HR, right? I'm also a plus size model and a body positivity influencer. So a little bit of information you might be interested to know about me is that I won an All India pageant recently. I represented South India and I came back home with a crown, right? Now, apart from these two, professionally and also the modeling interest, something which really excites me is connecting with people, talking to them. Psychology is one thing which really excites me, and the more I relate that with human experiences, that gives me a certain high. I love reading. I love swimming, and I also love traveling. That's a bit about me.
So I love how we have an HR fraternity celebrity out here. So that's really exciting. And we're going to deep dive a little bit into that. So I know we're talking HR today, but I also want to really, really learn a little bit about your journey of, I know you also had a huge weight loss journey personally. You have been a body positivity influencer, which is one of the things which all of us struggle with today, irrespective of what everybody's weight is. Everybody struggles with being positive about their own body type. So tell us a little bit about that. How has been that journey for you before we jump onto the HR part of it?
All right, interesting. Thank you, Smiti, again. Now, so basically back in 2021, that year wasn't really kind for all of us, given COVID, and there were many elders at home. I had to caretake. So I think I hit a rut about in December 2021, where I told myself, I need to change something in me, a real transformation, emotionally, physically, and mentally, right? And nothing comes close to fitness. You change something about your body, you eventually change a part of your your mental space too, right? So I started working out. I started putting in the right nutrition, and something very magical happened. Fast forward about a year and 2 months, I lost about 35 to 38 kilos, and bam, I was my journey is still in progress, but I'm getting there as we speak, right? So that's all the physical transformation. Now, I want to call out few things, little key takeaways which I actually learned out of the journey, and maybe my friends who are just listening and would be able to relate to their corporate journey as well, right? Three things which really helped me to put it in crux is, first thing is perfection was not something which was striving for. Okay, all that I had to do was little steps, just wake up and show up for myself on the mat. That's where it all started, right? So I really understood on a personal journey that year and a half about the power of consistency and discipline. Okay, something which could look extremely overwhelming. Let's just say 35 kilos and 40 kilos, which for me was humanly impossible in front of me. Slowly, when I started breaking that into very small parts, started focusing on one day at a time, things started moving in the right direction. Okay, it's not that this was the first time I tried. No, I have always been, a chubby child and and a plus size girl, and I've tried that earlier. But something which was a game changer this time was the consistency and the tiny discipline which happened. It's recurring, right? Every day you put a little bit into it, and suddenly within a year and 2 months, and I'm already there as a very different individual. That's point number one. The second thing is like many of my friends usually ask me, so where did the transformation is okay, weight loss journey is okay, where did the pageant actually like get into picture? That's a usual question, like, people ask me. Now, while I was working towards my, like, my physical transformation, I hit about 20 kgs weight loss. Okay. Then I took a pause and introspected. And I felt like maybe this is the time I started I want to like push myself outside the comfort zone. Okay. Because by nature, like, I'm an ambivert. While I love to talk to people, I also want my like own self to like recharge myself and all that. I really wanted to break all the little shell which I've actually built around myself and become like a different being. So I went on and registered myself for this All India Plus page. So long story short, called on for audition in Bangalore. I cracked it. So then I got invited to New Delhi, where I could see a wave of like beautiful bunch of women, like 97 participants, like, across India, like turned up. And I don't even know how to paint my nails to begin with. Okay, that's where I stood. But I think the beauty there is like you already stepped outside your comfort zone, and the magic has already started like begin for me. So from 97 participants, I moved up to top 30, and from there I won the crown for South India, and I came back home. Okay, and that experience by itself was like surreal. I went in as a certain woman, I came back as like completely a different being from there. Right. And that's something which I would advocate to each one of you all. Like, if you're watching this and if you're like a woman, especially, I would strongly recommend you go try like a pageant. You're going to come back as like a different being. Right. So magic actually happens when we push ourselves like comfort zone. Okay. That's the second learning. The third learning which I took is like success, be it at work or like, otherwise, is never ever linear. Even in my transformation journey, there are great few months. Okay. But there are also few months where like I'm actually genuinely like working out. I'm waking up at like 4 in the morning. I'm working out, putting the right nutrition, but yet nothing happens at all. So the differentiator there is, are we willing to like, hold on the forte? Maybe you're aspiring for the promotion. You're aspiring for the like big check. But as we are working towards it, we don't just give up on ourselves. We hold it. When things are not just going the way we want, when things are non-linear, we just don't like give up on our dreams. We just hold it and just keep going, because eventually we're going to like hit it there. So these three pointers which I said, like, how showing up every day for yourself, little ounces of discipline, and your magic happens like outside your comfort zone, and success is never ever linear. So I think these are three takeaways which I learned out of my transformation journey, and I'm absolutely able to relate that. I took it back to my corporate experience as well. So that's a little bit about me.
No, that's amazing. And I totally concur with, the 3 points you said. That one, those little steps which you take daily, they really matter. So don't just strive for perfection, strive for those
Absolutely.
daily or short-term goals, which, eventually will lead you towards a larger goal. And of course, consistency and discipline will help you get there, where you break your big problem in smaller parts. And like you said,
Totally.
magic happens when you push yourself outside the comfort zone. I love that line. And considering, like, I'm an ambivert too, and considering the fact that, like, I also don't know how to paint my nails, by the way. So I don't know how to paint my nails, I don't know how to do my hair. But I can't imagine being in a pageant kind of a situation. So it must have been incredibly hard for you, and kudos to you for actually going and actually winning it and coming back. And that also proves
Thank
that,
you.
it doesn't matter where you come from or what experience you've had. What matters is what you really have set your mind out to doing. And I think
Absolutely.
that is more important than anything else. And lastly, like you said, success is not linear. You have to hold on to the fort. You have to continue having that perseverance, to actually achieve something. It's amazing.
Totally.
I think we kickstarted the podcast on a really, really high note. I love that. So let's
Thank you.
talk about your professional journey now. You mentioned that you were an electrical engineer and then you went
Mhm.
into HR. How did that happen, and why did you decide to shift your career domains, and how your career has moved?
Sure. So that's an interesting journey, right? I mean, like this was about like a decade and a half before. And the cliched move is that you finish your engineering, then you enroll for like MS in a US university, and bam, like you make it big in life. So this is the mantra, the sauce for success, right? So I did complete my like electrical engineering. Then like eventually the opportunity for me to, I got my first job as like a coder, an ASP.NET coder. Okay. So I was working in an organization, a little one, and uh, somehow like while I was like getting there, like as a coder, I was like I was able to like code reasonably well. I was getting the, my manager was happy, but somehow like when I really did an introspection, I was not technically like enjoying that. Okay. And in that organization, it was more like a startup. They were like just growing up and making it big. So I started like, volunteering over the weekends to help them out with the recruitment drives. And bam, and suddenly like I just knew I was all like a happy butterfly. I was like happy. I was able to relate. The more I spoke to the candidates, I really felt like really like rejuvenated. Okay. So it took me a while, and not that my family was like quite happy about my decision for me when I switched from a techie to a HR, right? But I do know somewhere there was a little tingle in my heart that said like innately, I really like connecting with people. Okay, I'm an empath, so that comes like quite naturally with me, and helping people, to giving them like solutions about like what's there. That is one element which I was able to relate a lot better compared to sitting there as like a coder. So that's how the transition happened. I wouldn't say it was like a very pleasant kickstart, because my family just felt like absolutely like devastated that I gave up a career there as a coder. But uh, years have like rolled by. When they see me like what I've made out of my life, they are immensely proud now. So I'm absolutely happy. At crossroads, I picked and followed my heart at that point.
Aarthi, are you my long lost sister or what? I mean, when I have such similar journeys. So, but I get it. I've also, started my journey as a developer, and then I moved into B2B sales, or, kind of client management roles in general. So I know, that entire kind of a mental blockhead which comes from your family that, okay, you're leaving coding, you're not developing.
Mm,
And I can code for the life of me, but it's not that I want to. So
mm,
it's also not easy making those career change decisions, because you need to
absolutely.
be very, very sure of yourself when you're actually
Mm,
doing that. Because everyone around you is going to be saying that, okay, this is a better career prospect, this is a better opportunity. Why are you going to something? There's a lot of uncertainty. And again,
mm,
coming back to what you said, going out of your comfort zone to actually make that magic happen. And I think it's also very inspiring for a lot of people who have been
mm,
at that crossroads at some point of their life, to when they're not sure that, okay, I want to do something else, but I don't want to leave this
mm,
comfort zone which I have, where I'm getting paid and I'm getting a regular salary, I have a job and everything's stable. Why do you want to leave
mm,
everything and then start something which I want to do, but I'm not
mm.
sure if I'll be able to be good at
Risking it
that?
all.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly,
risking it
exactly.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And when you take these kind of risks and when you actually move forward in life, of course, it's not easy, right? So you face a lot of
Mm,
challenges, you face a lot of issues, but you have
mm,
to, move forward, because the only way to actually move in life is forward, right? So can you give us some
absolutely.
examples, maybe one or two examples of such challenges which you've faced in your professional journey when you were doing your career switches, or your domain switches, or even within HR itself? It's a
Mm,
really, really challenging role in general.
mm,
I personally feel that HR is also a very energy consuming role, because
mm,
you're talking to
mm,
people. So being an empath helps, but at the end of the day, your energy is gone. So I,
mm,
I
mm.
would love to understand a few examples of challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them.
Okay. So I started my career in talent acquisition, right? And now talent acquisition, for what it used to be, it is absolutely evolved, like, miles and miles like what it is currently, right? But that switch which happened when I was like into a talent acquisition expert, and then I just switched into as a HR business partner. So that is like as good as like chalk and cheese, right? So specific challenges I'm able to call out at this point in time is like it's just the one side of the coin. A TA or a talent acquisition expert, like sees like one side of the coin until an employee joins. But when I started as a HR business partner, it sort of gave me completely a 360-degree like shift perspective of what happens, how is somebody's journey after they're brought on board, and how are we able to see. It's just not about giving them like a great start, but are we able to like sustain it as they like go inside the organization, and what all do we have to do to make sure. And it's not like one size fits all, right? And maybe 1 year, like a decade or two earlier, it was like we were talking about the 80s kids and 90s kids in the market, but now we have the like Gen Z coming over. So what works for my employees who are like around the age of like 40 and 50 is it also going to like appeal to my like 20 something like youngsters sitting there? Absolutely not. So which also calls for constant innovation and passing on the creativity. And culturally, as do we have like leaders and managers, our business stakeholders like in line with that? Do we have their buy-in for me to like explore all of these? So while these are the specific challenges, which I'm sure like not just me, but anybody who's like switched within HR would have faced. But the good news is like I mean it goes like hand in hand, right? Like it's business hand slowly like holding hands with like HR, and the journey has been like excellent and like pleasant so far. So yeah, while there has been like challenges, eventually it's just that you may not know like a straightforward answer as we start, but like eventually as you sort of like go with the flow, then you actually understand and like we sort out the gaps in this moment.
Yeah, and you're also right when you say that there are constant innovation requirements. Typically when you're looking at such a volatile base of employees which we have today, we have different types. We have the Gen Zs, the millennials, the boomers, the old 90s, and all of those people. So how have you innovated employee experience or recognition or any engagement programs at Photon to drive a better employee experience?
Sure. So Smriti, like I take care of the global rewards program in my organization, right? So as I did say earlier, there is no one size fits all. So what works for my organization, like it may not necessarily like work for another organization. So each of us as HR, like we do know, like we sort of like understand the pulse and then just take it forward. Now, one thing as a thumb rule, which I've always done when I do my rewards is like, while innovation is cool, like while bringing on the metrics and the AI element is like great, I'm always cautious not to miss out on the basics, which is let's make it personal. Number one, let's magnify recognition, meaning let's hype it. This is a space for us to like brag our own guys. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let me give you a perspective there. Right. So now felicitation. Now, like the good news is in my organization, we all have like started reporting back to work, and I'm glad to say almost we are close to 100% having all of our colleagues like back to work. So this opens a great window for me to call them all for a nice like a recognition event in person, right? Which we couldn't like explore for like last couple of years owing to COVID. Now, very recently we tried something for I represent the Chennai location for my location, where the original plan was to call all of the winners for the previous quarter and call the leaders and just have a felicitating ceremony. Now, this is some rule, happen all organizations. But when I went to my mantra, how do I make it super personal or hyper personal, hyper personalizing it? And how do I magnify the recognition element? Okay. So when I really gave it like a strong thought, something like popped up and I said, let's convert this to be a rewards 360 connect. It's not going to be just a felicitation. Felicitation, yes. But even before that, I want to know the story of every single winner out there. I want to create a forum where like, anybody walks in, let's just say like, Smiti is one of the award winner. Okay. Calling Smiti onto the board and like handing out a champion reward to her is great. But I want the leaders out there, I want the managers and HR out there to really hear out her like, success story. And then like hand over the award. I some way feel like that is going to be a complete like, the kind of visibility, the 360-degree visibility I give in front of your manager, in front of HR, in front of the leadership is going to be a different, like, a game changer there. We tried this. It was more of like a pilot. We tried this, and the kind of positivity which rolled out there in that room was like mind blowing. Okay, where we just went around the table. Basically, the winners were accompanied by the managers. We also had the location leaders there. The HR folks were there. So the manager spoke a line or two about their achievements, and it's a very natural tendency. You speak something very nice about me, I also open up and say, hey, like, thank you for being there. Thanks for hand holding me. Thanks for like, having my back. So that started like turning behind as a positive ball towards the managers. And the leaders also like, pitched in as and when, if in case they know few employees like personally, they started pitching and saying, hey, I would never forget the great work which you did for that quarter. The customer was like super delighted. So it was like an absolute like ball of like, positivity around there. So I feel in Crux, while innovation is great, numbers, metrics, like bringing on the cooler elements are absolutely great. The bare minimum, if we just focus there and build something like nice, nothing like that at all. So that's something which we tried like recently, and it worked like a charm for us. So the mantra which I always follow is like, make it personal and let's magnify recognition. So hyper personalization is the key.
That's amazing. And I think I love how you converted the recognition into like a listening kind of a session, right? So recognition is always like one way where you're
Correct.
as a leader saying nice things and then giving the accolade or whatever is the reward to the employee. But here you're doing it the other way around, where you're also listening from them back after
Absolutely.
seeing the recognition. And that's, I think that one tiny change in the way run things makes all the difference. So
Absolutely.
it's amazing. And lastly, just as a last closing question, is there any piece of advice you'd like to give to HR leaders of tomorrow? I know we spoke about personalization, a lot of things, but if you could just, combine everything in a short crux and give a quick advice to the HR leaders of tomorrow.
Definitely, definitely. So, Smriti, see, for me, I always feel, okay, there is an ongoing struggle between being empathetic and also being able to make like tough calls. And I'm sure all my HR fraternity colleagues will be able to relate this line, which I said, right? So you basically want to be caring because you understand that behind every single headcount, there is a human being, right? But you want to like make sure the employee well-being is a priority, but at the same time, like there is a business we run by the end of the day, okay, which needs to move in the right direction, right? So, and I'm a strong believer that HR is truly, truly a part of like art and science, which means we need to embrace the data. Absolutely, yes. Okay. Your metrics, your data is absolutely critical, but let's not like forget the humans behind it. So if you'd ask me for like one piece of advice for tomorrow's like HR leader, let's make tough decisions, but with empathy. Be the mantra.
That's awesome, and you're right. There's always a balance between empathy and making those tough calls, because if
True.
you are more tilted towards the either of them, that does not work out in both cases. So it has to be the perfect balance.
True.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Aarthi, for your time today. And that also brings us to the end of this podcast. And I'm sure our listeners and viewers will love this session, and they will gain a lot of amazing insights from it, and hopefully go triple motivated than what they were then before they started watching this. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Smriti, and thank you for a colleague like Ritika for this opportunity, and a special call out and thanks for Advantage Club, and thank you once again for the opportunity. It was like absolute pleasure interacting with you.